That's awesome. Yeah. So operationally, it sounds to store it was what you inherited, which is great. But 90,000 square feet and trying to focus on customer service, you just sound crazy. That's just like a huge store. And to be able to cover that much ground and create a great customer experience, it's extremely difficult. You mentioned Meerby, which is the company that you founded based off of Canadian Tire and that customer experience. It is a game changer. So Alan, why don't you give us a breakdown?
Stood up what now I understand to be like an MVP or a proof of concept. Put about 150 of these buttons scattered throughout the Canadian Tire, and customers started pressing them at a fairly rapid rate. And over the course of that kind of first year, our Canadian Tire went up from 28th to 16th in enterprise sales and top line sales. Our customer satisfaction improved, our employee NPS improved, and our average sale increased, which is now one of the highest in the chain.
Wow, that's amazing, Alan.
Welcome back to another episode of the Innovate on Purpose podcast,
hosted by Matt Mueller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation.
Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Innovate on Purpose, brought to you by The Mindful Innovator. I'm your host, Matt Mueller, Global Innovation Strategist, and today we are going to be talking about transforming the customer and employee experience all at the same time. And to do that, we have an amazing guest on today, Allan Malcomson, who has a great background at Canadian Tire. He is a managing director there and has also founded a company and is the president of Meerby, which is a game changer for retail. And when he was telling me about this a couple of weeks ago, I got so excited. I was like, Allan, I need to have you on the show to talk about this because you are transforming the game. So welcome to the show, Allan.
Thank you for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, Allan, I guess let's just dig right into a little bit about your background, like where you're from and what you're doing currently at Canadian Tire.
All right. So I tell people generally I'm third generation Canadian Tire, which for context for some of your, I imagine, mostly American listeners, Canadian Tire is 500 of them in Canada. We started as a tire shop, but now we joke, we're kind of, if you took a Dick's Sporting Goods, a Pep Boys, and a Lowe's and smashed them together into about 900,000 square feet, you get a Canadian Tire, which is confusing, certainly with only tires in our title. We just celebrated our 100th year a few years ago. So we're a legacy chain in Canada and really trying to navigate as independently operated franchises a really competitive and dynamic retail environment. And I can remember when Walmart came to Canada. I remember when Home Depot came to Canada. I remember when Target came to Canada, and it continues to evolve. And Canadian Tire, unlike some of the other great Canadian brands, have survived. And I think that's a testament to our corporate leadership, which has been really strong for many years. And then also the enterprising, unique qualities that the franchisees, or as they call them here, the dealers, really embody, which allows them to live and breathe in their communities and really try to make a difference and get to run really, really incredible stores.
Yeah, it's amazing to see just the size of Canadian Tire. You think it is like a very corporate-ish type of retail company. But then it's independently owned, like the Ace Hardwares here in the U.S., which is always a very unique and challenging type of proposition when you want to stay on brand and have your store experiences the same across the whole chain, because it adds, brand equity. But at the same time, you have these independent owners that are everywhere that are running the stores. It's hard to keep that. So it's amazing that Canadian Tire has remained strong and has done 100 years. And is continuing to evolve and transform the industry. I know, Allan, so working at Canadian Tire, third generation, What were some of the biggest challenges when you first took the helm?
Yeah, I think our parents, my sister and I, now run the Canadian Tire as a team, and we've also co-founded Meerby together. Our parents, mostly my dad, because my mom was probably looking after us and maybe not as much time at the store as they would have liked. He really had a legacy of running one of the best Canadian Tires. He had strong operational background, really liked logistics and understanding supply chain management and really the nuts and bolts or the dollars and cents of running a business that at this point now is 90,000 square feet. And we got to close to $50 million and 50 million Canadian dollars in sales. So then when Elizabeth and I really started to take control of the retail operation on the floor, boots on the ground part, we really thought the greatest opportunity for us to differentiate ourselves from the different players in the market was to really focus on the customer experience. The store looked great. We understood the differences between micro seasons and just-in-time inventory, and we were really operationally sound. And kind of one of the jokes we've always made is like the store was awesome, and our job was not to screw it up. And the next part of that then became, well, what is going to be our legacy, or what mark can we leave on this company because it was already so strong in a few areas. And we really started to focus in on the customer experience. The store was, as I said, 90,000 square feet. We had dedicated a team of customer experience representatives to go down the floor, and they could walk the floor and have 6 to 8. We'd have 6 to 8 people down the floor, but 6 to 8 people on the floor would equate to covering somewhere between 2 to 2.5 basketball courts worth of space. And our aisles are often 12 feet tall. And a good day at Canadian Tire in Canada would have about 1,000 to 1,100 customers. We're open 15 hours a day. So you have this like perfect vortex almost of our associates are moving around looking for customers. You have customers in the store that are just looking for toilet paper and they don't need help. But then you also have a customer in the store that's either looking for a sump pump because theirs is broken, they're looking to buy a new tent, or maybe they need help in automotive and they're looking for new light bulbs for their car and they actually need help. So it was trying to figure out effective ways to connect the dots between the customers that need help, our great staff, and they're not all great, but many of them are, and they really want to help customers. And that was what we really want to focus on.
That's awesome. Yeah. So operationally sound store was what you inherited, which is great. But 9,000 square feet and trying to focus on customer service, you just sound crazy. That's like a huge store. And to be able to cover that much ground and create a great customer experience, it's extremely difficult. You mentioned Meerby, which is the company that you founded and based off of Canadian Tire and that customer experience. It is a game changer. So Allan, why don't you give us a breakdown of exactly what is Meerby and how it's helping?
Okay. So almost 5 years ago now, Liz and I joke often that like we literally remember almost where we were down on the floor. So we have 128 aisles in the store, Matt, for context. And again, you put 8 people on the floor, you divide by 128 by 8. It's still a lot of ground to cover. And we started canvassing the market of what was available to do a better job of connecting customers. So we looked at things like the traditional call boxes that a lot of the call boxes have existed for 30 years almost. They connect to the radios, they connect to the PA. We had some of them in the store already, and we really couldn't understand. And this has gotten a little bit better, but it was pretty terrible 5 years ago. How many buttons? How often were they pushed? If they pushed, how long did it take for us to arrive? So we really wanted, if we were going to make the experience better, we wanted to be able to quantify it and use data to really dig in to make it the best possible. And call boxes couldn't do that. So then the next thing we did was, well, let's try text for help or QR codes, because that was really starting to enter the market. And I know I shared you the stat we talked about it the first time. So we put 300-ish QR codes up in the store. And the first week we got a couple scans, but by the end of our, we'll call it 3-month test in store, we were averaging 0.7 customers per 100, or 0.7% of our customers actually engage with the QR code. So we were getting about 7 out of 1,000. And 7 out of 1,000 on an average day at your Canadian Tire wasn't fundamentally changing how we went to market as running the business. So the next phase was, well, let's try texting. And this is, again, QR codes pre-COVID, so it was a little different. So I think we put up 500 text this number for help. And the number actually got worse.
Oh, wow.
People didn't want to take out their phone and text us to engage for help. I think, again, because they're worried about using their own cell phone. They don't want the marketing material that comes after that. And it very clearly said, like, we're not going to spam you with this, but it didn't matter. And I think pre-COVID, we didn't quite understand why they weren't necessarily engaging in these, we'll call them loosely digital opportunities to engage. So after that, we're like, okay, this doesn't work. Let's try again. So then we decided, we actually went and got about 100 tiles, which are those things that connect to you put on your car keys so you don't lose them. 100 tiles out in Canadian Tire. We put a little signage package around them. We literally connected them all to one phone. We called them something, and we almost went to 17 and 100 customer engagement, like literally overnight. So we went from 0.7 to 17. And we're like, so there's something tactile about pushing a button. There's something that customers still understand, whether they're 16 or 80, about pushing that button. And what became really interesting quickly for us was once they pushed the button and we had the ability to control who went, the customer experience also started to improve. So we found a local computer company that would write some code for us. We stood up what now I understand to be like an MVP or a proof of concept. Put about 150 of these buttons scattered throughout the Canadian Tire, and customers started pressing them at a fairly rapid rate. And over the course of that kind of first year, our Canadian Tire went up from 28th to 16th in enterprise sales and top line sales. Our customer satisfaction improved, our employee NPS improved, and our average sale increased, which is now one of the highest in the chain.
Wow. That's amazing, Allan. I love like that. It wasn't like just like you had this idea in the middle of the night and boom, it was done. You talked very, very well about like, the different iterations of this and saying, okay, well, let's try different things out. And first, like the call box, right? So just trying that out and saying, okay, well, let's put a mic on everybody and see how that does and see if the communication works and all. You're reliant on the employee to quarterback that situation, which, I mean, could be extremely difficult and challenging to identify those customers. But then going in from that to the QR code and the text to help and seeing that only 1% of your customers practically were engaging with it and saying, okay, well, yeah, this is great. We got some people doing it, but it's not going to have the ROI of the increasing customer experience and the sales because you want to have that interaction, that engagement with the employee and customer. But then going into finding out that tiles work, I love that. So going from 1% to 17%, that's like that aha moment, like, okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of just wanted to slow this down and kind of go back through it again, because as we talk to these leaders that are listening to the podcast, like this is, a perfect example of how you can innovate within your business today. Because it's not a matter of finding the silver bullet immediately, but what can you learn quickly and like just really kind of just skunk works. MVP, like what can you put together real quick to just test and learn? And you had that with the callbacks, the texting, the QR codes until you found the tile. And then it was, okay, now let's double down because we found something that's going to work. So that's an amazing story of building up to the tile. But I'd love you like just to go back a little bit, like what like inspired, like you wanted to increase customer experience. What were the signs that told you that this was a direction that you really needed to move towards? Like what were you seeing that was like, oh, we need to do something here?
Yeah, I think, and I kind of alluded to earlier, that the competitive landscape continued to evolve in Canada related to retail and really in North America. Whether it's the continuous flow of what feels like unnecessary bankruptcies or poor retail standards. We knew we were spending more on wages trying to engage with customers than most of our peers, but it didn't really materialize into a very clear increase or improvement in our customer experience scores. So as retailers, even to this day, there's nothing I like more than just going down on the floor and walking around and asking customers, and I can help them. And we always tell the story, like you go down and we'd ask 10 customers if we could help them. And 9 of them would say no. And then the 10th one that you finally find, one, they're just like ecstatic. You asked them if they wanted help in the first place, because we continue as retailers just to degrade the expectation of our customers. Or the person's like, holy shit, I haven't been able to find anyone. And I knew that I had 6 other people down there doing that, but they were like water bugs in the river and you couldn't connect them with the right spots.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it was just, you read your customer satisfaction comments, you do your Google reviews and go, we're better than this, but we weren't, because that's what the customers were telling us. So we needed to come up with ways to connect those dots, which I've alluded to. And the other thing is, with our couple, we got almost 200 staff. We joke about this all the time. 40 of them really like customers. Lots of them don't. And whether it's Canadian Tire, Walmart, Target, hopefully, they don't get offended when I say this. We've got lots of great people that work here that want to help customers. And we got lots of great people that work here that want to put boxes on shelves. And unfortunately, when that customer's wandering around that big box retail store, they just find another shirt that says Walmart or Canadian Tire, and they're like, I want that person to help me. And it's not their job. And they may have been there for 3 weeks and they're nervous. So they put their head down and they try to scurry away. They say they're going to find the right person. They don't know the right person. So let's come up with repeatable ways for the customers at our stores. And now we have 15 of them with a waiting list for January of ways that customers can come into the space. They do the same action every time, and they hopefully get a great result in 97% of the time. And now we get this incredible daily or weekly report card that I've shared with you of these stores we put up 200 buttons a few hundred times a day, whether it's proactive or reactive engagements. We're helping these customers, and we're seeing all these positive increases in, as I said, so sales, conversion. Mm-hmm. We're really focusing on conversion as a defining thing, because a lot of these big box stores, they're converting in the mid 50s. Our conversion in Canadian Tire and Canada is about 72%. So the reason why we're in the mid teens for Canadian Tire is not because we're great at all the things, but if you come in here, you've made the decision not to shop on Amazon, you came to the store, you probably want to buy something. And if we can get you through the application, we haven't talked about what the app does yet, but we need to get there. If we can get you to the best person on staff today to talk about that thing, the probability of conversion or sale is higher because they actually understand the light bulb that connects to the hub that you have at your house. And it makes it a much easier transition into that sales.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the episode, like just going to a big home improvement store here in the U.S. and finding an employee saying, "Hey, I need some help figuring out how to fix this thing or do this," and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but Jim does. Let's go find him." And then we're walking around the store trying to find Jim for 10 minutes. It's just like it's not the greatest experience, and I feel bad for the employee that I had to stop to get that's that question for, because that's not what that person does or even, likes as a job. It's like you want people to spend time doing the things that they love, and not everyone's customer service. So some of them want to do backroom work, and that's totally fine. It's something that I think we need to be better at retailers is understanding is that everyone doesn't do everything. We have, people that are subject matter experts that thrive doing these things. They're passionate about it, and that's what's going to deliver the better customer experience and that increased sales. So it's really cool. And you're right, Allan, we didn't talk about the apps. So we understand okay, we have these tiles that are around the store that people can press to get help over. But this thing is so much more complex and amazing. Allan and I had a chance to just, do a Zoom call a couple weeks ago, and I had a chance to see your screen. And it was I was geeking out just on the level of detail that was happening within the system, how every employee is connected to it. They have a phone in their pocket that's going to allow them to have check-ins and move them in the directions that they need to move, making them more productive. Allan, I guess, can you give us a 30,000 foot view of what does the system really entail? Because it's just so cool.
Yeah, so this will be my retail geek moment. So I think the first thing, and again, this has been a multi-year journey. And so the first thing we wanted to do was just put buttons up, and I got one. It's just little RF button that, we buy them for $10, not hundreds. We put them everywhere, and it connects now to our native application that can run on Google, Microsoft, Apple. One of the day, Matt, we got on the App Store was a pretty cool day. Because then we got through all the Apple hurdles, and that was one of those, as a startup, that was a moment for us. So Everyone has their own profile. So you show up to work at Canadian Tire, you tell it you're at work, and the application now knows that you know how to mix paint, you know how to sharpen skates, you know how to look up car parts, you know how to cut dog tags and cut carpet and all these different things. It knows that your primary department is hardware, and today you're going to work in housewares, and you're also supporting in home improvement. And with about 4 button clicks, you're now in the talent pool. And we've got these, in this case now, 200 buttons scattered throughout the store. Press this button, and immediately every 3 seconds, the algorithm runs, right? And we started to approach this at the right time with AI starting to complement some of these things. Customers push the button, and instead of going over the intercom and saying to 45 people at Canadian Tire right now, somebody needs help, which diffuses responsibility and all those other problems, or it's in the radio and they're having a conversation with the customer and they're now distracted, we're going to send a push notification through the app to 2 or 3 people that qualify as best available to go service that customer. And one of the jokes we used to make all the time was we had a button, an old-fashioned button, call box or help box, right, for at our paint desk. And as a great retailer, self-described, I would have always said to my staff, don't ever go to the paint desk buzzer if you don't know how to mix paint. But what I realized is that every customer from plumbing, electrical, home improvement, and paint all pushed the paint button because it was the closest one. The paint guy shows up and goes, oh, I'm here to mix paint. And can you help me with the electrical section? Oh, that's a different guy. But it was the closest point of interaction for the customer. So now we put buttons everywhere. So we're now providing the best available associate at the point of need for the customer. And then the algorithm's improving. So we know that Matt really likes electrical. We track arrival time. So customer presses button, we send 3 notifications. You then claim. Once you've claimed it, it goes away. So nobody else gets bothered. We have a delay function, so it can kick it back into the talent pool if you get delayed on the way over. We track arrival. We track service time, because now we're trying to optimize what is the ideal amount of time to serve. Because you can mix paint effectively in 10 minutes, but you could also make it last 27 minutes if you don't want to get on to the next one. So we're understanding at the individual employee level what that looks like. And at the end of the engagement, we track sales conversion. So we understand what happened. And that can be a little bit big brothery if we're not careful on how you manage that. But did you or did you not make a sale? But if you didn't make a sale because that $1,000 gazebo is out of stock, there's an opportunity for them to note that in the application. It goes to the printout for the next day and we go, okay, we need to order more of these gazebos, or we need to top up fondue fuel because it's just before New Year's Eve and we need to figure out how we're going to do that. We kind of got really good at deploying best available help to the button. The next problem was, so I'm walking around Canadian Tire saying, can I help you? The application thinks I'm available. So this is part of that organic growth. And I think this is really neat. So the first version of this was the team started putting buttons in their pocket. If I walked up to you and said, can I help you? And you say yes, I'd push the button in my pocket to put myself on busy mode, to remove myself from the talent pool. And this is totally part of that change management piece that's really interesting in these facilities is if I'm alone in the housewares department, helping a customer trying to sell $1,000 coffee maker, and a customer presses the button because it's a lock cage for the knife showcase 3 aisles over. The application knows I'm busy now. It will and I'm alone in my department. It will automatically go find someone else in the store that has the keys and the ability to go help that customer. So the teams on the floor, and now we have just shy of 2,000 agents through the application at our different locations. They want to tell the app good information because that good information then feeds them help as required.
Yeah.
Even if you're alone in the department and you just have to go to the washroom, you literally could put yourself in offline or break and scoot to the bathroom real quick, and then your section isn't abandoned. But if you are gone for too long, it will also now push to the management team being like, did you know there's no one in seasonal right now? Which is kind of neat. So we figured out now reactive and proactive engagement. That was great. Then we went, well, what are the things this application can do? Because we understand deployment really effectively to maybe make Canadian Tire or the big box retailer safer. So we put buttons at the cash. So the cashiers have buttons that say, I need a backup cashier. And the application knows who can run a cash register, and it deploys to that different person. It says, I feel unsafe. And you can, instead of having to call your manager on your phone or radio and be like, this guy's being a jerk, they push the button that's underneath their desk and the manager just happens to walk by. It has loss prevention implications because we can connect now directly to our LP that's on site. If they're busy, engaged, or even not here, it will go to the management group. But part of this, having hundreds of staff is you need the process to be the same to them every time, because it's really hard to be like, oh, the floor walker's here today, do this. No, do the same thing every time. And the application understands how to route to the right person, depending upon who's available. We've kind of branched out. So we're doing some restaurants, quick service restaurants, gas stations. So we're doing the bathrooms, areas that need help, like the propane, like the refill your propane tank outside the gas station. We've got buttons on those now.
Put it on my local gas station. We need it here.
Yeah.
Worst experience ever.
Oh, it's hard. And there's some great particularly American chains that are going to market as like, we have clean bathrooms. And with this, I've got 2 young daughters now. I was never that engaged in what the bathroom should look like, but now it's really frustrating when I get into the bathroom and understand that, there's no toilet paper and we need to get that sorted. But that's continuing to evolve as the application improves. Now, the last thing, the app, and I realize, again, as a retailer, we have all of the emergencies built into the application. So we have Code Atom for lost child. We have fire, medical. We have like active shooter or active engagement. It sends notifications to the staff, tells them what to do. the building's on fire, it tells them what post to run to. If there's a CPR engagement, it will lock out the app, but only for the people that have first aid, so they know where to respond to. We're right now in the process of wrapping up our checklisting report. So you literally in the morning can like trigger the opening manager report. In my facility, there are 73 sensors, doors, things to check to lock the building. So we now trigger at the end of the night the closing checklist, and the 2 or 3 managers that are there, they just like, they all show up in their list and they just start ticking them off. And if you forgot to lock the front door, somebody ticked it, and then at least you know who to follow up with, which we think is really neat.
It is really neat. I remember the days of paper checklists of walking around a store, closing it down.
Yep, me too. And like part of it was like you figured out how fast you could run the perimeter in addition to ticking off the paper at the same time. You done that as like a 15-year-old at the local Canadian Tire. So, and the last thing now that we've really rolled out, which isn't super useful yet at Canadian Tire because they have a different system, but we now can ingest online orders from like an email system. So like we can literally tell our associates there's an online order to be picked. We have different escalation models. So if your SLE for an online order is an hour, it can send the notification to the person that should pick the thing. And at 45 minutes, it would beep to the manager to say it isn't done yet. In addition to that, you can pull up to the parking spot. It now is connected, scan the QR code, let them know that there's somebody coming. And all of that then creates this massive data set. And we're getting real world first person data that's saying, you know what, Matt, at a minute 47, customers start to leave. So like if they're at a showcase or they're at the paint desk, these are high value engagements often. At a minute 47, they start to leave. So then we need to figure out how the algorithm has to get there faster at, all right, 45 seconds, find 2 more people. And at a minute 15, find a manager and be like, holy shit, we got to go. And we've now continued to harness this. The staff, and I talked about this earlier, the staff get to do more of what they like to do. And it doesn't mean that they never have to go to the areas they don't want to do, but your job is easier. If you know nothing about fishing and you have to spend your whole life in the fishing department at Canadian Tire, it's not fulfilling, or Bass Pro.
They won't be there long.
You won't be there long because either your manager's going to get tired of you avoiding it, or just the experience will not be fun. If you want to put box on shelf and you're new, we tell them to push the button and say, in a minute 15, the best available person to talk to you about that razor will come and arrive, and they're going to have the keys. They're going to know they're coming to the razor section, and they're going to be excited to sell it. So they now get to go do what they want to do. And the person that comes around the corner also goes, okay, and this is the replacement foils to go on your razor. And all of a sudden we went from an experience that might have been like, oh yeah, here's the thing, and please run away. And, you know, they're trying to get away from it to an opportunity to sell more stuff.
Yeah, it's a surprise and delight moment, because it's like you're coming into stores these days, I think, as a customer, just expecting to be served and just the minimum, right? Just give me the minimum. Oh wow, they smiled at me, that was amazing. But when you can like over deliver, under promise, over deliver every single time, that's really when you have a brand that's going to be strong and make it through another century. So it's that makes total sense. I feel like we almost like skipped a moment here. So Allan, you said things are going well in your store. You had increased sales, you had better consumer experience, better employee NPS, and then you talked about, you know, going into these other retailers and chains that are your customers as well from Meerby. But you also expanded within Canadian Tire. It's not like you're just in one Canadian Tire, right? So how many Canadian Tires are you in now, and how's that going from one store into multiple stores?
Yeah, so that was kind of a neat journey too. So last summer, and I guess now depending upon, because we're now in 2025, summer of 2023, I had a different operator come and tour our store and go, what are these? And it's this and that. And he's like, can I have it? You know, like, oh, maybe. So we had done all of the original code and work only just to make our own business better, because we continue to chase that. We want to be the best. And about 8 weeks later, we flew to Calgary and installed our first store, and we had convinced another guy to do it at the same time. So we went Calgary, Edmonton, that first kind of window, and worked out the bugs. And then we went another store in January, and then, you know, the phone rang again, and it was another 2 stores in March. And now we're at 15 full stores. And we kind of have a waiting list of stores that we're ready to do in January and February. And
waiting list. I love that.
And a really interesting, and part of this is like a bootstrap startup, man. So last January, my sister and I said, okay, we've now installed in these 3 Canadian Tires. we're not obviously manufacturing our own hardware yet. So we said, well, let's order 15 receivers and 2,000 buttons. That was our January 2024 plan. And we ran out of receivers and buttons in the last week of October, first week of November. We'd installed them all. So the wait list was that it's a pretty significant company in Europe that we're buying them from, so it's not a problem. But we now have more gear coming in January to start installs again. So we had ticked the box as an early startup. Our 2024 goals were accomplished, and now we're kind of looking to the next version of that. But all of those stores are outpacing their peer group in top line sales. Retail in Canada and North America right now is tough. So some of our stores are posting decrease, but they're posting smaller decreases, obviously, than their region. One of the ones we talked about just before we jumped on this call, we installed in a $40 million Canadian Tire in March. They were down 22% after 13 weeks last year. They ended the year down 9 or just down 8 and change. And like every week I log into the sales and just like watch them just like closing the gap a little bit. And we looked at this. So they helped 67,000 customers through the application of the 500,000 customers they served all of last year. So like we've done the math on, about 80, if it was a full year, we'll call it 80,000 customers on 500. So you're fundamentally affecting a significant portion of the people that came in through the front door. And then that is affecting average sale. It's affecting just general conversion. We talk a lot, and there's some competitors now that talk about like, what's that acronym? BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, or no, what's the buy in store, BizSpun?
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating to me because if you want to shop on Amazon, and generally those put a QR code on a showcase and have the drill meet you at the cash. It works, but it's a really effective way to never sell anything besides the drill. So attachments way down, and what we're seeing in our stores now is average sales going up, units per transaction are going up. We think that's a direct correlation to the fact that we get that next thing. And that's not greasy salesman next thing. It's that you get home and you're like, I have to do this job and I need that too. Right. And we always talk a lot about the complete solution of, this is a silly one, but we still have one. If customer wants to come to Canadian Tire and spend $900 on a coffee maker, we can do that at Canadian Tire. And we can also sell you a $19 coffee maker at Canadian Tire. But if you get home with the $19 coffee maker without the $4 filters that makes that coffee maker work, we failed you. You probably order those. You don't drive back to Canadian Tire. You order them on Amazon. They show up and you're like, man, I should always order these filters on Amazon. And we've lost that all the time. So we need to make sure we do a good job of connecting those dots. And that takes experience and training. And it's hard because our staff are fairly transient. But the next thing I'm going to tell you is that my staff are happier. My retention is up because we're letting them do the things they like to do most of the time. And that creates this really positive momentum in the space.
Yeah. One of the biggest learnings I had in retail, doing a lot of associate research, is learning from them that most of the time they feel misunderstood and not supported. And that is usually the biggest challenge with frontline employees, is that they just do not feel like they're understood and underappreciated. So when you are able to provide them support, and know that you understand, hey, I know Allan loves to sharpen ice skates. I'm going to put him first in line to sharpen those ice skates. All right. It's going to make him happier and want to stay. And if they have to go to the bathroom even, it's just like, it's a perfect solution to be able to give them that space and allow them to take a bathroom break without having a manager calling them on a page to come back to their department. It's like, it creates clearer communication and a better understanding of the employees, which is just, I think, so unique and so needed for retail as we move forward into, into 2025 and beyond. It's just that we need to do a better job of understanding our employees.
And Matt, I didn't say this, but my wage cost is also improved because instead of paying 6 or 8 people to wander the aisles looking for help now, I have 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they're wandering around trying to be helpful. But if we see these spikes in traffic, right? And now that there's improved camera vision and occupancy, the application's doing some of that too. But we only need 4. But if there is a bunch of people that need help, it just goes and says, okay, you're from promo, come over here and help. And you work in the operations team, come over here and help. And they understand it happens, maybe more than it did before because there were more of them. But the nice thing is that their team's also bigger now because those wages could get redeployed to do something maybe more effective. We also talk a lot about the backup to cash thing. So we spend a lot of time now running people to cash. But at the end of the day, if we spent 7 hours on backup cache really well, and that's over 15 different engagements, and we got there in 2 minutes and they spend 7 minutes there, well, all of a sudden now we've spent 3 hours on cache. Instead of bringing in a 7-hour shift for lunch coverage, which I would have done previously, we're just fixing that really effectively. And the team now, we also know who went and how often. So you can go and be like, good job, Matt. You went 12 times on the weekend to be backup cashier, and we appreciate you. And you spent an hour up there, so that was great. And you didn't build this one end. Good job, Matt. Like, we never had that insight before. So the other one that I think is really funny, literally Liz and I we started writing code or drawing pictures on whiteboards, then became code of like, what are the decisions we had to make on a busy Saturday at the front door as a store manager? And like, one of the ones we hadn't talked about yet is that people come in and be like, does anyone speak Portuguese?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, Tiberio speaks Portuguese. Is he here today? Is he on lunch? What's he like? No, he's not here. The application. So we also have required and non-required skills. So like, we can literally go into the app and be like, is someone here that speaks Russian? Probably bad choice right now. Is there anyone here that speaks Portuguese? And it would go and tell you. But if you don't have anyone at work that knows how to sharpen skates, it'll tell the manager that they're sharpening skates, or show up with a gift card to apologize for the fact that the guy that knows how to sharpen skates today called in sick.
Mm-hmm.
But if there isn't anyone at work that speaks Portuguese, not a big deal. But you can go look for it if someone asks, because we do a lot of business now with Google Translate in a phone, right? As interesting as in 2025. The last thing I think I need to say about Meerby, though, is so like, we were closed on Christmas Day. We didn't answer the phones on Christmas Day, but we are a retail technology built by retailers for retailers. So we have agonized over that installation process and understanding the different signage types and I know probably every North American manufacturer for gondola. And so I understand the difference between Lozier and Slawtex and OSF and all these, and Edelec and all these different guys. So like, we show up and it fits. And we know when is and when is not appropriate to drive a Skyjack into your cache lane. The joke, one of the stores we installed in was a Canadian Tire, obviously. They had a big cache line and something was going on. And all of a sudden their general manager looked over and I was on the cache. And he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, you had a lineup and I knew the code. So like, I did it. And he's like, thank you. But that was just like, this is what our customers need, right? And we joke a lot about, we want to be the best technology experience you've ever had, because I know how shitty it is to have a bad technology experience.
Yep.
The app was down for 17 hours last year, which on 365 days we were pretty proud of. We still have this beautiful test box that is our Canadian Tire. So we have the opportunity to write code. We have a test box, but then we have an actual test box, which is the 15th busiest Canadian Tire in the country. So when we push it to our real stores, it works because we've load tested the crap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
To get some of where the buttons are and the things that we've done. We have wellness committee meetings that we run with our staff. So like, some of the great ideas have come out of being like, guys, what's your next problem? So what a powerful way to create technology by going right to that frontline user that you had mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the delay button, so you can claim a call. And I mentioned this quickly earlier. On the way there to you got to go 40 feet. Can you help me? It just take a second. Well, it never takes a second. You hit delayed and it kicks that request back to the top of the pool and someone else can grab it. But that was totally an organic evolution of one of our staff being like, guys, this is one of the things that messes up my arrival time because I'm trying to not stiff the guy that ran into me ahead of time to get to the next one quickly. And I'm like, well, why don't we just create a button that allows it to go back? And they're like, yeah, let's do that.
That's amazing. And definitely something I think that is, at your advantage is that you have a living lab,
Yes.
for Meerby, which is so cool. And I geek out on that because it's so important to be able to test it live, learn, and then continually iterate. Because it's like, you guys are so innovative and approaching this with like, what did we learn today and how can we move forward to tomorrow? In fact, before we got on into this podcast, you're mentioning some amazing things that's getting patented right now. So it's amazing to see that you're continuing to innovate and not rest on your laurels, even though you have a waiting list. Because a lot of companies, when they have a waiting list, they're like, okay, we're good where we're at right now. Let's just cash in. But you keep on going. So tell us a little bit about what you have in the pipeline.
Yeah. So the now based on when, where we are and depending upon timing on when we decide to release this. So our big reveal at NRF is going to be the first ever digital touch e-ink screen that will now become a call box. So we're rolling out a 6-inch screen that will say press here with some of our fancy signage around it. And that's we'll get some material to connect to the podcast for afterwards. And when you press that button, it's going to say, thank you for pressing the paint desk. We've received your request at 11:33:49. Our anticipated arrival time is 57 seconds from now. And the application will then do its work. But the customer knows that something's happened. And then think, one of those really popular ride-sharing programs where the application then sends out a bunch of notifications saying, we're looking for someone that can mix paint for this and that, and it's going to find Jim. And in our case, Jim's been here for 16 years. He's logged 10,000 customer engagements, and he has a 4.8 rating on the score that we've accumulated, and he's on his way to help you now at the paint desk. So we're going to actually provide real-time updates to the customer on who's coming. It's going to be like a high-value touch. Hopefully it increases the stickiness for the customer because they know Jim's coming and Jim's great. On that paint desk button, actually, too, Matt, we're going to have two buttons. One says, do you want paint or do you want help? So then it can send me the best available person that can help, or do we need to send the paint pro? So there's situations in these big stores now where, well, I just found this button and I happen to be at the ammunition showcase. Well, we have to be very careful who we deploy there. Well, maybe you just want to talk about a hunting jacket that's in the warehouse. So you push the help button and it'll bring the right person. The other part of that, which will end, we're going to be able to link a QR code there for real-time customer feedback. So we're going to were you satisfied with your service? Yes or no? So again, just continuing to close this loop of what does the customer need from us to have a great experience? And we talk a lot about, we're building loyalty as retailers when they come to the store. Right? You don't build retail loyalty because your application's a little faster than the other guy. I don't think. Price matters, delivery time or SLE matters on the website, but you create actual loyalty to the brand when you come in and that person smiles at you and they provide you good service. And it goes back to that coffee filter example from earlier, is that guy knew enough to give me the filters and I'm going to go back there the next time I need something. So we're talking a lot now, but whether they're on the couch or in the car, how do we make your brand, because it's now that we're starting to enter the American market in January, how does your brand convince the person to come? And we think that's really going to come down to that smiley face, the product knowledge, the short cash line, the opportunity to ask for a manager in real time, and we're actually going to address it, that Meerby provides, that we don't think anyone else in the market can do at this point. We also haven't talked at all about, as I continue to throw more things at you, now we're tied into transaction log. So we understand wage cost analysis. So we're sending managers notifications a few times a day being sales are up, add a cashier. Sales are down. Should you redeploy? It's going to range. Eventually it could get to the point where the model is going to pull in and be it's going to rain tomorrow. Maybe you should adjust tomorrow's schedule too. So we're providing these read and claim notifications to the managers of guys, we have a dashboard that everyone can see. We're fully transparent. So they know that, this is arrival time. These are the sales today. And you know what? If our sales are 27% up from plan and our arrival time's 10 seconds longer than it should be, that's a win. But now the management team, boots on the ground, needs to go, I got to add another person or put another person in primary or secondary just to get there faster to continue to maintain that contract with customers we're trying to protect. So it went, originally it was smart call boxes, and now we got to be careful on language, but now it's a store manager companion of, and I said this to you before, if I'm running $1,000 Saturday at your local retail store and I schedule to it appropriately, which we can also help with if they don't have a good scheduling tool to get to 200. If I do 180, it still feels busy because it means I did $1,000 less per hour over the 15 hours I was open. But at the end of the year, if I missed my wage cost by that 10% every day, it's catastrophic.
Absolutely.
We really needed to come up with ways that in the fight, we could say you're off a little bit. And it's half a cashier here. It's the guy that's unloading the truck in the warehouse to come out and help for an hour. There's a lot of different really cool things that we can do through the power of our retail experience, the people that we've surrounded ourselves with, because we also have a really strong advisory group, and then also the integration of AI and language models, right, on how we continue to make it smarter. So
yeah, it's amazing how it's optimizing the experience. And I love that the store manager companion is definitely, I think, a great kind of branding way to go too with it, because it really is a companion and something that is truly needed. I wish I had it when I was running stores.
Me too. You too. I'm hiding in the office too much now, so doing it for everybody else.
So Alan, so you mentioned you're going to NRF. That's coming up here at the time of this recording, a couple of weeks here. Do you have a booth number? Where can people find you just yet? Or
yeah,
is that something?
We're at booth 346. Please stop by, say hello. We're going to have our digital screen, our e-commerce and deployment tool will be there, and just the regular buttons itself showcasing what it looks like on a showcase and how we deploy. And then we'd love to show you our daily dashboard, our management notifications, or even that opening and closing checklist stuff. There's lots of opportunity to make your business either more efficient or probably, hopefully, more customer appealing.
Awesome, Alan. Yeah, go to booth 346. There's definitely some really cool visuals that he's going to be sharing there. It's an amazing tool. And what I love about it is it's so customizable to where it's going to fit you exactly as you need it to fit. So many different case studies. And I'm sure that you'll get an idea or two just from stopping by on ways to improve your business tomorrow. So, Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back again as things progress here at Meerby. And it's just keep on innovating, man. Great work.
Perfect. I really appreciate it, Matt. Great opportunity for us as well.
Thanks.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Mueller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to TheMindfulInnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.